What up, y'all? We've been down this rabbit hole for a couple months now.
Yeah, months.
And there's a million video ideas we have, but it's been really hard for the last week because we hit a point with this stuff where it's not like frustration.
There's just so much.
Well, there's so much, and we've gotten to the point where we figured so much out that it's like, man, we had to like take a week off and just be like, oh god,
For like emotional and mental sanity, stability. It's a lot to take in, even for people like us who already been questioning things for a while.
So a big part about researching the old world or the Tartarian Empire is looking at old photos after you have stepped outside of yourself and what you know and what you were taught in school growing up and by the media and by the government about our history. And once you open your eyes and start looking at these old photos, you become very suspicious about the narrative that we were taught.
You notice different things as
yes. You notice different things, and you may hear things, hear about strange things that happened in the past, and you kind of like blow it off as, oh, that's just weird, different times, But anyway, this video is really good that we're going to review right now. It's a slideshow of basically kind of, strange, not necessarily just strange old photography of the past.
Mm-hmm. Some illustrations that are supposed to be historical depictions.
Stuff like that. But it basically starting with this strange migration of children from all over Europe, all over the East Coast, allegedly taking children out of the big cities and bringing them into more rural areas. But what really ended up happening is that they brought children from all over Europe, mainly Eastern Europe and China and Mongolia, brought children here to populate the big cities. When they said they were bringing kids out of the big cities, they brought them here to populate cities that were already here for possibly hundreds of years. So anyway, this video has some creepy music. We're not going to run that. So there was a huge influx of the amount of orphans coming into the U.S. from around the world, all around the early 20th century, like around the turn of the century. It went from like hardly any orphans coming into orphan houses to thousands of orphans coming in. And so they were coming in from all over Europe and Asia and like all these places. And then they basically brought all these kids out, put them on trains, and they would take them all from city to city and just dump kids off.
Yeah. As you'll see from these pictures, there's plenty of pictures of all of
It's very unusual stuff. And they also had these were the train cars that they just have kids playing in, and they would bring them to the city, and people would just pick kids out, or they would just dump kids off at orphan homes until they were old enough. And then these incubators. So a big attraction at amusement parks and world fairs were baby incubators with babies in them.
Real live infants,
Real
as
live
they call them. As you'll see from some of the signs from these exhibits, they're just this new technology called incubators with babies in them, and that was a display. And you could also adopt these babies, right? Wasn't that part of the whole thing? So they're taking babies and putting them in these boxes, like incubators. They're kind of snake oil. They were kind of making them out to sound like something a lot more than they were. They're really just a clean box
that's
clean,
warm and has oxygen going through it. So it wasn't that crazy technology, but like if you're going to take a bunch of babies away from whoever, wherever they are, and send them cross country,
transport them by
back in the
train
day, it
for
might have made
hundreds of
sense to
miles.
put them in incubators, but then they like made a sideshow out of them, which is really weird. But allegedly, that I mean, it sounds like it seems like that was just a front for just like migrating more babies into the area, more bodies for a system. More necessary bodies.
If you're going to do that, how would you do it? That's a perfect way.
Yeah.
That's a perfect story.
Perfect way to do, yeah. You hire a bunch of nurses, a bunch of incubators, throw the babies in there, take care of them as you transport them to their new families, where they eventually end up in schools. So you flood these empty cities with humans. No one really, when they're babies, like they don't really ask who built this place, you know. So what easier way of rewriting or writing history than starting off, these societies or a society with scratch, with nothing but babies, and then put them into school and, set them up with a kit with their clothes and everything they need.
Yeah, get them set up with the narrative. They're in school. They don't know anything. Their parents or whatever are not around anymore. You have these blank
wherever
slates.
they are.
Yeah.
So they're the perfect blank slates with no history of their own to start in this new society. So, obviously this is all kind of making a little bit too much sense. But indoctrination centers. And then, and you get a lot of photos
Look at this.
that look like this.
Look at the buildings compared to the road and what's going on, like with the rubble there.
Yeah, like, okay, they might have been digging a sewer system that day or something, but it looks like, a lot of really beautiful, big, large, old-looking buildings with just complete rubble out front and dirt and horses and horse shit and like,
Yeah, a lot of horse poop.
And the more, if you go to YouTube, type in your city and look and like vintage black and white photos, old photos from 1800s or something like that, you'll get these photos, and there's too much coincidences with the photos from your city to the next city to the next city to the next city, and like you start noticing things that like don't make sense to the timeline that we were given, and like what is this mess? I don't really know what's going on, but it's strange, and you'll start seeing these patterns the more old photos you look at. Dirt roads, really nice. Like this is you could imagine back in the day, this is the max that a building would be in the 1800s. A two-story wood, cowboy style.
Yeah, looks like Wild West.
Like this would be like the maximum building back in the day, when there was really look at the streets.
Yeah, completely undeveloped.
Like a lot of those buildings, like that looks like that would really be hard to build that in sand, but these are very old looking. This is the part of the whole, this is the deception. Like those buildings didn't just get made. According to the narrative, those buildings just got made. They're all brand new, and you see this weird tower thing, these pillars and this weird little box, very strange, old looking stuff. And if this city just started, why does everything look so fucked up and old already? And why are the streets sand, mud, dirt? I don't know. Looks like there's like a river going through it.
Yeah, it's just an odd.
But yeah, and then you look at all, a bunch of other photos of different cities, and it's the same thing. And like, you get pictures like this where it's like, that's a new building? That building doesn't look new to me. That building looks hundreds of years old. And, where did these immigrants and miners that immigrated to this country? Where did they find the silica to blow the glass for that building? You know, where did they find the sodium bicarbonate to make the cement, to make those blocks when they just got here and they were so preoccupied getting gold? Like, how did they build San Francisco?
I think that's something I will definitely make a video on.
Yeah,
we
we'll
need to look into.
definitely.
Where are all these bricks and all these crazy structures that you'll see? We'll show pictures of.
How, without
were they
cranes
yeah.
or electricity or
What
math,
is the production of the bricks? Like where
did
you know,
they
where
make
were they
these
made? Where were they
perfect,
manufactured?
beautiful, giant 20-story buildings in
Yeah. Takes a lot of material.
1840?
Yes.
It's strange.
Yeah.
But you understand how, if you're brought up in school and they shove this stuff down your throat, you don't even question any of this stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, so what the hell happened here? This looks like a war happened.
Yeah, I mean, this could be San Francisco, post one of the earthquakes?
Possibly.
Maybe. But even that still, look at that building.
All the windows are still there. Okay, so this is the sideshow.
Infant incubators with living
infants.
Not dead infants,
Yeah.
living infants.
You can go and look at them and literally pick them out.
It's very odd.
And, you know, like, these dudes are posing. Like, look at this guy with the stick. Like, he's, oh, we're carnival people, you know, and, like, everyone's dressed over the
Is that dude
top.
holding a baby with a hat? Yeah, I think
These dudes look pregnant for some reason.
those pants, man.
Like, everyone's clothing seems way too big.
And look at all the matching hats. A lot of them.
Yeah. But, yeah, so this is, you know, this was probably at the World's Fair. Very strange. And you'd think, okay, just different times. But no, there was some sort of weird agenda, you know, like weird stuff that's happening still, you know,
Creepy.
that's still happening these days was happening back then. Human trafficking, stuff like that.
Yeah, but
So basically, you know, on both
take a second,
coasts,
look at
yeah,
this
on
picture.
both coasts, you know, we have like Coney Island in California, we have like the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, we have the Santa Monica Pier, which is famous from Baywatch, where there's carnival stuff on the beach. This picture is really strange because everyone's like way overdressed and they're in the water in dresses and stuff. And you can see like there's a girl down here. She's like, you can see her butt crack. This, I don't know, that looks like a naked person. Like,
it looks like people
Who've
maybe
never seen the ocean.
encountering, yeah, the ocean or the beach for the first time. Maybe, I don't know, like.
and then just given clothes that maybe aren't right for that type of venturing into the ocean, you know?
And the weather, like, yeah.
You know, it looks kind of overcast, but you can't tell because it's an old photo. But like way over, like, look at this lady here. She looks like she's getting married. Like, everyone's kind of wearing the same couple outfits, but they're in the ocean in dresses.
Yeah.
And you know, people may say, oh, people didn't really like show much skin back then, but I don't know if that's necessarily
I think this is
true.
one of those examples, like we're saying, where we're taught.
Because there's a naked person, there's a butt, you could see everyone's like basically naked in their dresses.
We would see this picture, we normally wouldn't question it, like, oh yeah, old-timey people, like you said, they cover up, but then really look at it though and think logically,
every picture is a clue.
Physically, how it would feel standing with a water-soaked dress, like, if anything, when the current, like, it's kind of sketchy, like, you don't want...
The people way out there swimming.
Yeah. Logically, as a human, like, these are still humans. Yes, it's
Yeah.
back then, but just
It's a little strange,
about
and
it.
all these pictures are potential clues.
yeah. Look
You
at the
know, like we
background,
got
like-
towers, lots of antennas, things.
Yeah.
Very old, ancient-looking buildings in the background. I'd imagine. Yeah. So, you know,
It's just
so
good to look
a
at the
lot
pictures in
of,
question.
a lot of. It's very interesting when you look at all these pictures with an open mind.
Yeah.
You know, and not. It's very interesting stuff. I don't really know everything
That's
about
something
what's
you
going
can- yeah,
on.
It's just you gotta have somewhat of an open mind.
So, again,
Check
like,
these people out.
strange outfits. Yeah, it's old-timey and stuff, but, like, how do we know that's how people used to dress? Like this.
Sorry, we gotta point out the guy.
This homie right here, flossing. Like, all these people seem to be flossing. Like, they're like, damn, I look good. Like, and it's like, it's one thing, you're like, oh, okay, well, they're, you know, they're out with their church clothing on, and, you know, like, that's just, but, like, it doesn't, like, these people are just, like, they seem like they're in euphoria almost. And the more, I know this is only a few pictures we've seen, but it's a general pattern you see with all old, like, a lot of this old footage. It's just kind of strange, but the clothing's very strange. If you know, take everything you've seen in a movie and kind of flush it down the toilet. So yeah, like she's almost like Amish dressed. Everyone's dressed very unusually. And
yes, it's like back then. Obviously, it's different, but it just
like this chick. Like, would you jump off of a?
Would you stand there?
Would you jump into the ocean with a dress on from a diving board? Like,
it's almost as how I described it earlier. Like, okay, like video games. Like you are joining a server and you have your loadout of clothes, and
what is this guy doing? He looks like he's never even seen a barrel before, and he's just like thinking he's like playing on it. And what's this guy doing? Like, so another big, you know, this is like, I feel like it's like almost every city has one of these old-timey amusement park areas or had one at one point. And it almost seems like these places were like the places where they would let the immigrants, this is like where they'd let them loose, basically, you know, to kind of like to find, like to put the final nail in the whole indoctrination by like, hey, we've brought you here from all over the world. Now look at where you're going to live. Look at the technology. Look at the electricity. Look at the machinery and the fucking architecture and all this stuff. You know, they're blowing these people away. They brought these people here, set them up with a kit, and let them loose in an amusement park, and then told them to go live their lives and become a part of the system. Like, full on indoctrination. Like, who, I guarantee not a single one of these people was like, I don't know about this. Like, and they were like, holy crap, I just came to the most prosperous place in the world, you know, after I've been fed indoctrination from the second they left their hometown. You know, they were sold on there's just gold everywhere and you can just go and be prosperous there. And then they get here and they see this and they're like, holy crap. Like, would you really be questioning any of this stuff back then? And then if, like, the majority of these people are young, like, these are all young people. There really aren't that many old people, which is strange. And another, like, it seems like all the old people are people of authority or people, you know, somehow the ringleaders of the area. But anyway, big buildings, you know, like already in, you know, what years? I mean, very old stuff. But these Ferris wheels and these spinny swingy things, you'll see a lot when you're doing research, and they're very interesting things that should be researched. Again, you got like this girl's probably like 12, but she's decked out, and like I kind of get the feeling she's alone for some reason. Like, I don't know. Again, everyone dressed kind of the same. All these dudes with these hats.
All the same hats.
Flossing too. Everyone's like, bow, like, bah, bah, bah. Like, these dudes are just like, it's like they've never had those kinds of clothes before. And they're like, holy crap. And like, they're all of a sudden they've been elevated. Yeah, like, look at these buildings.
Damn.
And like, what we're told is illiterate miners built these buildings with like donkeys and wheelbarrows and shovels. With no electricity, no cranes, no math. I mean, how educated were this melting pot of people that came here from around the world? Like, again, like, same clothes. Like, I guess maybe that was in style or something then, but it seems like everyone got a kit. They got kitted out when they got here. Here's your clothes. They may not make sense for the climate. They might not be your size. But here they go. You know, here you go. Here's your kit.
And a cool hat.
And a cool hat. Everyone's got their hats because Americans have hats. They rock hats, bro.
Yeah.
So the more you look at these pictures, the more weird things. And you can't just say, oh, it's just different times because, like, it wasn't that different. You know, it just wasn't that different. This dude's got some cool sanding machines, probably a cobbler fixing shoes or something. What do you think?
Something.
So, you know, and you got drawings like this from before we had photos, you know, depicting things in the USA where it's like, wow, you know, and like these, you know, you got these guys that these dudes must be ballers, you know, these guys must be some of the inheritors, possibly.
It's like they have something to do with the media production, something.
Yeah, or just business, some major business stuff. And, oh yeah, these guys got a camera. They're probably early newspaper news, you know, and like what it seems like the more we dive down this stuff, it seems like these cities were found and the elites populated them sparsely with their people in order to renovate and start a government and start a banking system and start a media system and get it going, you know, with their sparse population. And then eventually they would use their influence to convince people to come here. Which is
hearing the history.
Yeah, all while
happened, which we don't know exactly.
By renovating the buildings, toning them down, knocking down a lot of the, you know, because you can't convince people that that's a brand new building if it's obviously 500 years old. You know, like old European buildings, you look at them and you're like, that's old. You know, and they're like trying to say that, you know, the USA and the West Coast especially is like 100 years old. You know, like we're not even an old place, but then there's these buildings that are just like, wait a minute. So anyway, this sparse population of Masons, Freemasons, that ran these cities, finally started getting the population sent to them, people, children that they can indoctrinate, people, you know, whoever they figured out to get out here. They told them, you know, that there was gold in all the rivers and all the creeks in all of California, and you could just go there and grab it. And there was probably the biggest mass migration of our history, or at least our known history, happened with just everyone moving directly, heading for the West Coast, basically. But these orphan trains and all this weird stuff, and it's just like, wait a minute, what's going on here? You know, so, you know, there was an obvious elite, and these dudes all hide their hands, and they're all super, super, super obvious about being Masons,
and it's documented. You can look. I mean, the people, the founders of this country, if you look at, they're Freemasons, admittedly, so it's not a conspiracy.
So back in the day, all these poles outside were telephone poles, telegraph poles. Yeah. They were telegraph poles, then they became telephone poles, and now they're power poles, which has happened over the last couple hundred years. These are telegraph poles, but the roads are, you know, dirt, and you know, they have horses and, you know, super low tech everything, but then they have these telegraph poles everywhere that eventually became telephone poles and are now power poles because we don't run telephone lines like we used to. They've been in the ground for quite a while. So these are something you see in a lot of photos from all around the world, strangely enough. And this, you know,
A lot of wires.
yeah, it's a lot of wires. So, again,
Clean up the horse poop.
dirt roads, mostly.
A lot of horse poop.
Cleaning up dirt poop, but like these buildings,
Look at that.
giant. See these
What's going on
round,
here?
you know, all these antennas. Antennas. Just keep an eye out for these antennas whenever you're looking through these
say they're
photos. And these
flagpoles,
domes, very ornate architecture that
just keep this
illiterate miners built from scratch. Before cars, look, it's all horses. So illiterate miners from around the world on dirt roads built these perfect, beautiful buildings, allegedly while they were mining gold. Like, there's just the chronology just doesn't work. They're trying to say that this stuff was built within 40, 50 years, 30 years. Just and in school they're like, oh well, the gold rush brought in a lot of money, and so that, you know, they just had gazillions of dollars, but that's not really how it works. And this is like no cranes, no nothing, like hardly anything.
And
Dudes
then what
with
happens
donkeys.
to a lot of these buildings? A lot of them burned, demolished. It's like, okay, if this were all true,
Beautiful buildings.
you need to not have these buildings around for too long, and because people will begin to question, like you were saying, how old are these?
How old is this
now
building?
We have these pictures. This is all we have.
They've
Look
all
back
been-
at a lot of these.
yeah.
If they're not demolished and completely refaced,
There are still examples in every city
But
of
there's-
these old buildings,
yeah.
but 90% of them are gone because they are too. It's like when they got rid of the space shuttle, you know, they had to obsolete it because it just doesn't look like it's very futuristic looking, and people eventually are going to be like, that school bus didn't fly to, you know, like
No.
you have to get rid of this stuff, the evidence. But these buildings were built like these buildings should last for 1,000 years, and they were all demolished. And, you know, every city, there's massive fires, earthquakes, all these things that absolutely could have been orchestrated by the powers that be, or just rewritten history. One generation, they can change the history of, you know, was the city bombed, or was there an earthquake, you know?
yeah.
So, horses, but they built all these giant buildings with, shovels.
Arched
See,
windows.
this is something that you would build back in the 1800s, and you'd think you're a baller if you built this place. But we're supposed to believe that they built these 30-story, beautiful, arched brick buildings. Look back here.
Kids working.
This place is still here in New York
And then,
to this day.
that building.
And it will be probably forever. Like, why would you knock down buildings that took so much to build? These are like brownstones. These brownstones are worth millions of dollars now. They used to be super ghetto, but they're all exactly the same inside. They're super nice, but you know, we got mud flood houses right here. Steps up to the second floor. Why'd they do that? So what's going on here? Are they doing sewage? Subway? Who knows?
Interesting. Yeah.
Like, what was that devastation? So,
Yeah.
you know, they brought over
All these people
boatloads of
coming
people. Boatloads and boatloads and boatloads of people, and told them that their lives would be better in the USA.
Repopulate.
So who
cities
wouldn't,
with
you
tax
know?
cattle.
So the Statue of Liberty is standing on a concrete structure that is made of, what's it called?
Natural cement
or Roman cement, which almost every city, every state capital, almost every state capital is also built out of this natural cement and Roman cement. We will be making a video
And that's
specifically
a whole
about
rabbit
that.
hole. That specific type
About
of cement.
that
Remember that.
soon.
It's
unbelievable.
That one's a wild ride, and there's also a good video. That we'll probably link that about that. But yeah, we'll definitely go into that. But remember, natural
From Sacramento, California to to forts in Florida,
Yeah.
to the DC and the Statue of Liberty. This concrete that doesn't
type of
exist in
concrete.
history was used. But anyway, we'll get to that later.
But yeah, base of Statue of Liberty there, you can see.
Yeah, it's a gray
Built with that
concrete
cement.
that is unknown to modern world. So here's more infant incubators, which is basically, they're basically a human trafficking center is basically what this is. They're just trying to make it seem normal, I guess.
Electric
Selling
auto chairs.
it's crazy that Elon Musk invented electric cars 150 years ago. That's so nuts. He's amazing.
Wow, he's a
He's
time
such a
traveler.
genius.
Actually, that's how he's a time traveler.
So again, baby incubators, kind of snake oil. It's just a warm box that has oxygen in it, you know. And they're like, oh, look at this technology, and it's helping babies, you know. Meanwhile, and then they're like, by the way, if you want a baby, we can hook you up, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like played out to the public as this kind of sideshow. So
Look at all those
this is a San Francisco World Fair. After they had 7 massive earthquakes and fires
And this was
over a
shortly
very
after.
short amount of time.
Yeah, and this was shortly after the last one, which is the one we all heard about. And were
3
taught in
years. They
school.
rebuilt
Yeah,
San Francisco
1906.
after they had 7 major earthquakes and fires. Who in their right definition of insanity, you think? Let's build again on a place that is known for being a not good place to build on. Makes no sense whatsoever. But this is the World Fair 1909, 1910, I believe. Insane. We will be making I will probably be making 10 videos about San Francisco alone, because a big part of this whole old world examination and revision is looking at what happened in your area, because so much has happened everywhere and so much has happened in your area that you can focus on that place and kind of be the expert at it pretty easily, because there's this mystery is you know, an international mystery, but San Francisco is a hot spot and a lot of false flags, turn of the century false flags, bro, like crazy stuff, like 9/11, like telling people planes hit buildings and knocking them down. Literally, they told people an earthquake happened, but what really they did, they just dynamited half the city.
Damn.
Super bougie. Like they just got the people here and are just like, look at this amazing life you can have. Start doing things. Of Chinatown, San Francisco. Everyone dressed the same again. Everyone with these goofy hats. Kind of funny because they segregated people with their clothing. Like, you guys are Asian. You guys wear Asian clothes and you guys live in this part of town. Just so much. Such a built out place for only being 30, 40 years old. This, I'd imagine, is what the Eastern Europeans looked like when they got here. Or, I'm not sure, would that be their clothes? That looks more like their clothes. Okay, so this is a really strange picture. So it's the Capitol or the White House? It's the Capitol.
Right?
Yeah, old little Capitol, right?
Okay. I don't know. Is it the White House?
I don't know. I thought they were the same place when I went to DC. I had no idea.
Status shit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
status shit. It's Tartarian status shit.
Yes,
so
but
anyway,
it's just old buildings.
why is it so dirty? Why does
Look at that.
everyone look like homeless? Like,
They were still figuring out kind of what to do with this population and what to do with these areas. I mean, look, if they came upon these...
They dropped like 100,000 people in D.C.
And they're just
or
hanging
maybe
out
not
on the
100,000.
lawn.
They're just like, okay, well, this is the capital, so I guess we come here to figure out what's going on. Because, like, we don't understand... Because who would understand if they were put in that situation?
Yeah.
If you were just dropped in an empty city and told to just live, you know, wouldn't you, like, kind of wander around and...
You're like, hey, this spot looks cool. Let's all
And if there
just go sit
wasn't
here.
a lot of food, or if the infrastructure wasn't as great as, you know, or if there was no
It's just
infrastructure,
early if they're dropping
was too
these people
early.
in early, then yeah, what are they gonna do? You know, hang out on the lawn by this big crazy building.
or maybe they just had a big party that day at the White House, you know. But like, I don't really know. But it seems strange to me because, and like, these people are like, what, like flossing,
Dude with the
flossing. Look at this guy's like, what?
yeah.
Flossing like they've never had clothes like this. Let's
Yeah,
go,
lady.
ladies. Let's go get pictures of us in our flossing outfits in front of this pier. Bow, like selfie, 1800 style. Like that doesn't look like they're just normal rich people that usually are in this scenario. I don't know. It just these people, and again, they're pretty young. Doesn't seem to be many old people around. Very young people and some, you know, people in their 30s seems to be mostly what we see in these pictures. But this is either Santa Monica or Coney Island. Santa Monica is here in LA again with the hats.
Look at all.
Everyone's got wearing the same thing. Like,
Whoa.
And if you think about what I was saying earlier about how a sparse population rebuilt and renovated and prepared to accept millions of other people, you know, you wouldn't be making that many styles of clothing. You wouldn't be making that many styles of hats. You'd just be making hats and jackets and t-shirts, and they'd be somewhat nice because you'd want the people to raise the people's, raise their self-esteem by putting them in nice, proper clothing. And so, you know, like, it just makes too much sense, this alternative idea of how, what is going on up here? Like, what is this built? Like, this stuff was here before. Like, this looks like Chinatown. Like, what is this demolished hanging roof? Like, might be San Francisco after the earthquake, but like, it just, these buildings were here before we were here. We didn't build all this stuff. Like, this would take hundreds of years to build these cities. And then it just reaffirms the whole America's great. America's best at everything. Look how fast we built these cities. Our grandparents built these cities with shovels and donkeys.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just bullshit. It's all bullshit.
Coney Island.
Coney Island, people just like not dressed for the beach, in the water in their dresses. If you're knowing you were going to go to the beach, and they're like, oh yeah, there are people modest or whatever, but it's like, nah, like, this looks hot as fuck. Like,
Village
New
Fair,
York?
hot dogs.
Like, would you, I mean, maybe it's winter or something, but like, just strange clothes. Clothes are very strange.
Are they licking a piece of ice?
Yeah, a bunch of Jewish kids. Oh, those aren't. Thought nothing but yarmulkes for a
not
second.
that small.
So, kids never seen ice
at that.
before.
Yeah.
So,
That
yeah.
building, though,
So,
look at the clock.
in like 20 or 30 years,
Take a moment.
they built all this stuff. A bunch of immigrants with no math, no equipment, no cranes built this shit, right? That's what they're trying to tell us in a few years.
or at least the people who are the workers, the workforce, that are actually hands-on. Like, obviously, okay, they had engineers that could do the math, but like, think of the people, the labor that they had at this time.
On dirt roads.
Yeah.
On dirt roads. Like, you can't even move
Like you
that
said,
much
no
bricks
cranes, like
across even cobbled roads without destroying them. So here's the orphan trains. They literally had trains full of orphans circling the country for years, distributing thousands of babies to people, and they just put them to work.
Yeah, one of the stories, they said in Europe they started essentially putting up what kind of like Planned Parenthood facilities, but these facilities where women could go and birth their babies and just
walk
leave
away.
That's the story of all, but it's a lot of kids though.
Horrifying.
Could it account for that many kids? I'm not sure. But
I can't even deal with this, like, pictures.
So arrival of the baby. So these are people, they say that they have people waiting at the train stations, you know, ready to pick up
kids. Babies.
Yeah.
Just send it down.
Hopefully you get
Chuck
picked.
One down for me.
Yeah.
Like,
pick one with, you know, blue eyes or something, with green eyes. I want one that's whatever. Creepy. Look at these
thousands and thousands of kids. And then, does this train look like a brand new train to you that was just invented and is new technology? This thing looks hundreds.
It looks old.
Very old. And like, can you imagine what these kids were living through?
Yeah, and how long would their story, you know, what they remember of their childhood, of where they came from,
would they know
remember?
Their names?
Would that get passed down through the generations? Probably not. I mean, I know, you know, in my family, there's kind of like
European.
The narrative kind of stops at some point. Like, we don't, you know.
Don't know.
Who knows?
And it stops around the 1800s for some reason.
Yep.
Everyone's stories. If you go to the oldest cemeteries, there's no one born before 1850 in any cemetery in the U.S.
More incubators.
More incubators. More creepy, weird, high-tech sensationalism, smoke and mirrors, snake oil, SpaceX, Elon Musk kind of shit.
Yep.
Distractions.
Creepy, man. Ooh, so creepy. Jeez, building.
More creepy incubators. Like, it was real deal.
Like, check it out.
Not a unusual thing that they were trying to, like, push this on people. Bricks are very important. Bricks and arches are very important.
Though. Like, that's not a simple thing to just throw up. No. Like, you see, like we were showing earlier, these wooden buildings.
Like, if you just got to a country, if you just got to a place and you had limited resources, you would build a wooden hut. And you would go up from there to, like, you know, the more
like
cowboy
these Wild
looking.
West towns that we think of. Like, that's the kind of
You don't build
brick
giant fucking fortresses,
like you said,
and
advanced masonry.
Advanced, next level, over the top. Waste your time and money making it so beautiful for some reason. When everyone's living, when you got dirt streets and everyone's struggling. Where'd they find the silica to make the glass? Where'd they find all these things that you need to make bricks? Like, it makes no sense if they just got off the boat.
Yeah.
And
so many bricks.
You know, and another thing, one of the major things was obviously Hollywood helping this along. Obviously, probably couldn't have been done without Hollywood. And but anyway, so I know it's a lot to wrap your head around, but this is just kind of another primer of, like, what this whole old world Tartarian, like, we almost don't even call it Tartarian anymore, because Tartarian is just one part of the puzzle.
It's just, and who knows? I mean, it's just old world history. That's been rewritten.
Yeah. But these, but most of our cities are built around something called a star fortress, which is it will usually be by the beach, by a river. We'll usually have canals going through it. There are many in the U.S., but they're all called Civil War star forts. But these were repurposed in the Civil War. They were here already before. Most of them have been bulldozed in the U.S. They're all over the world. But anyway, these star fortresses were all part of this society, and they were all connected. And they were basically like free trade centers where you could go. Yeah, like bartering. But they were all run off of free energy. Like, it was basically like a very non-predatory type of society. Possibly. the more you dig, the more it seems like it wasn't something that was, it was something on the other end of the spectrum where the people were definitely better taken care of than they are in our society today, which basically is just simply enslaves us. But it seemed like these star fortresses weren't places for people to live. They were simply warehouse cities where manufacturing or people could go for resources and trade and barter and work or something to go live out in nature, because the pattern we're seeing is that like people back then lived out in nature and lived better in nature, and city, you know, we aren't supposed to be in cities, which is something that I believe in 100% and have always believed in, but it keeps going and keeps going, but it sounds crazy, but it really doesn't sound so crazy. And especially when you start researching what is left in your area, basically like look for old fancy buildings and bricks. Like once you research enough about what Tartarian architecture looks like, you see it everywhere. And what they've done is over the years, they've taken the buildings and they've facaded them and toned them down so they don't look so old, and they've put wood over the bricks, and you know, they've just done these things to make them look more modern. But you start to see it after a while because you become so familiar with it. But yeah, so Hollywood, obviously a very important part of keeping the brainwashing going, with this new batch of bodies for this system that was put in place, this predatory system, after a reset from what seems to be a culture that was in like full peak efficiency and how did I explain it earlier? The society was just like killing it, and you know, was basically, you know, there to help the people, and you know, scumbags came along and basically were like, oh well, we should screw this up so we can make money off of it, because there's no money to be made off of a society that's running super efficient. You get money when things are messed up in the politics, you know. But anyway, so
more for another video.
Yes, more for another video.
There's a lot to dive into.
But yeah, so the more you look at, I mean, there's literally millions of photos from this era.
Yeah, just start looking at photos.
Just
old.
Look, your city in the 1800s.
Early 1900s. Yeah, look at your city. Look at what's around.
Government centers.
Yeah.
Government centers.
Post offices. A lot of churches. Start looking. Bricks.
Yep.
Domes.
But anyway, we'll be putting probably a video out every week at least. We'll at least try and do one a week.
Yeah.
But we'll catch you guys later. Peace.